Hi, I'm Eduardo Lavaque. I have been a software engineer for 11 years. It'll be 12 next year, of course. And today's video is about predicting the future. And if I were to put it in one sentence, it would be understand the principles and apply logic. All right? Video over. No. There's a little bit more to it, and I do have notes because it's a little bit more detailed than most of my videos. At least I think so. But yeah, let's just get through them. Okay. So the first part is look, don't listen. What that means is when somebody tells you something or you hear something on the news or whatever, go and find out yourself what happened. What did the person actually say? And you do that by reading what they said or listening to an unedited interview of what they said. Right? You don't do that by listening to what others said about what was said or what others said about what happened. Yeah? You can really only find out the truth by looking yourself. Okay? Or if you really trust what the person telling you, or if you really trust the person that is telling you what they're telling you, you run a risk, but that's another way to do it. That's second-hand information though. Okay? If you want to predict the future, first-hand is more valuable and useful. Okay, there's an important step here, which is you need to actually study the thing yourself. If it's something about, hey, this technology is cool and whatever, guess what? You need to actually study the technology and find out what is there and what isn't. Short example with AI, they tell you, it's going to replace humans in the future. Well, study it. Find out what AI actually is, how it works, and what it can actually do. And you'll probably very quickly arrive to the conclusion that it cannot replace humans. If anybody does believe that it can replace humans, they're delusional at the moment, in present time, or they're buying somebody else's narrative. They're not looking at it themselves. Okay? And be prepared for anything. You could find out some very ugly truths when you actually read into things and find out what is actually happening. You need to be prepared for that. If you're not prepared for that, just don't bother. No, seriously, it's going to mess with you and you're not going to like it. Okay? That's step 1. Look, don't listen. Step 2. Apply logic. So now some people, honestly, logic is considered to be something that everybody has built in. I don't think it's built into everybody. Not because people are stupid, but because logic is actually counterintuitive at times. Okay? It can, however, be studied. And you can say, well, if this is happening, then that must be happening. If you want a tip, find out what isn't there. What should be there but isn't. That normally gives you a lot of clues as to what you should do. If you then reverse it, what is there that shouldn't? And then you get a little bit more into the logic of, well, if it's there but it shouldn't be, why is it there? Maybe there's another angle you need to look at it. Anyway, the first step is finding out for yourself. Look, don't listen. But the second step is applying logic. And that also means don't invalidate your logic. Meaning, everybody kind of knows what is right and what is wrong. Kind of. And when they're given a set of data and they look at it and say, okay, it's like this. And then somebody else comes and says, no, it's not like that. You got it wrong. Actually, you're kind of dumb. This is how you should interpret it. They either better explain to you how it is that their interpretation is better, and then when you do it yourself, you find out that that is actually true, or you ignore them. You shouldn't let other people tell you what to think. You should think for yourself. Okay? An important thing here is to make you stronger in that, well, you've already looked for yourself. So you actually should already understand the principles of the subject. Therefore, you can actually figure things out on your own. If you haven't done the first step, yeah, leave it to the experts to do the logic. But you have done the first step yourself. You can do it yourself, the second step as well, figuring out what actually should and shouldn't be. And if you're wrong, I hope you have an expert nearby that can explain to you how you're doing it wrong, and in such a way that you can understand it yourself. If anybody tells you you're stupid and then doesn't explain why or how to be better, they're not trying to help you. Okay, once you've arrived at a truth, it might be necessary for you to be comfortable with discomfort, with being uncomfortable. And you need to be steadfast in that position. Why is that? There's a lot of lies that are sold as truth on this planet. And when you find out the real truth, perhaps don't announce it, but if you do find a need to announce it in order to stay true to yourself, you need to be comfortable with the fact that other people will find you uncomfortable. You will be the one left out, or you will be the one that is different from everybody else. You need to play it strategically there. It might not make sense to let them know. But if it does make sense, just be confident and comfortable. There's nothing wrong with being right. Okay? See, I even got two sides. Now, why do I suggest that you stay true to what you've figured out? It's actually quite simple. If you don't, you're betraying yourself. And once you've betrayed yourself, you lose something in you. You cannot trust yourself anymore. And then the whole process breaks down. You might notice that actually in our institutions, in our systems, that is kind of the point a lot of the times. They're trying to get the person to turn back on what they've said before. And that can make a person betray themselves if they don't really believe what they're saying. Meaning they believe A and then they say B because they were forced to. That can really mess with a person. Shouldn't do it. Okay? So those are the 3 steps. Look, don't listen. Apply logic, your own logic. And be uncomfortable. Or put another way, be comfortable with your position. Or be comfortable being uncomfortable with the fact that people will be uncomfortable with your position. There's a lot of ways to say it. But the 3rd step is simply keep your integrity to yourself by staying true to yourself. Okay? I think if everybody did that, we'd have a much more agreeable planet. There wouldn't be so much deception and so many lies, and people wouldn't be so confused because they would know that they can trust themselves. By the way, I know that I'm black and white. Unfortunately, that's the truth of this particular shot, but I hope you enjoy a little bit of the Swiss countryside. Thank you for watching.